I never imagined that the day of my sister's wedding would change my life so completely and irrevocably. As I stood in that grand, ornate hall, dressed in my carefully chosen blue dress, holding my 5-year-old daughter's tiny hand, a subtle wave of unease and uncertainty surged through my heart. My sister Valentina's eyes, staring at me with sharp and ambiguous expression, seemed to warn me. There was something in those eyes, a profound, unspoken message that told me something was about to go seriously wrong. A storm of unknown fear and expectation raged within me, hinting at a dark truth hidden beneath the glittering landscape of the celebration. "Are you okay, Mommy?" my daughter Lucia asked, noticing my shaking hand. "Yes, darling. I'm just so excited for Aunt Valentina." I lied and tried to smile. The truth is, Valentina and I were never close. Since childhood, she had always been Mom's favorite, the most beautiful, the smartest, and the one with the brightest future. On the other hand, I became pregnant at 25 and have since become a single mother, working 2 jobs to raise our daughter. When Valentina announced her engagement to Alejandro, a respected physician from a prestigious family, my mother's pride was at its peak. "Finally, someone in this family is doing something respectable," she said bitterly, looking at me sideways. It was heartbreaking, but Mom had grown accustomed to facing frequent disappointments in the family. The ceremony, like everything about Valentina, was perfectly flawless and elegant. Yet, midway through the reception, an unexpected twist turned everything upside down. The master of ceremonies announced that it was time for the bride's speech. "I want to thank everyone present here on the most important day of my life," Valentina began, her voice rising from the microphone, "especially my family, even my sister Carolina." I felt a strange shiver. The way she said my name didn't bode well. Carolina has always been an example to me, an example of what not to do in life. Laughter erupted among the guests. Lucia looked at me in confusion, and my face flushed with embarrassment. "My sister is a single mother, unwanted for anyone," Valentina said, raising her glass. "Maybe I should thank you for teaching me that mistakes have consequences." I was on the verge of tears when my mother, who was sitting at the head table, blurted out, "This is old stuff. Who would want that?" and laughed. My daughter held my hand tightly. She didn't understand why people were laughing, but she felt my pain. Just then, newlywed Alejandro suddenly stood up. There was an expression on his face that I couldn't decipher. As he walked straight to the microphone, the room fell silent. No one expected the groom to interrupt his wife's speech. He took a decisive step and took the microphone from Valentina, who looked at him completely shocked. "Excuse me," Alejandro said, his deep voice echoing throughout the room. "But there's one thing everyone should know." Alejandro's voice had a ring of authority that silenced the room completely. "What you saw does not represent the values I was raised with, nor the ones I want for my marriage." Valentina's face paled. "Alejandro, this is just a joke between sisters," she whispered, trying to take the microphone back. "No, Valentina, these are not jokes." His gaze hardened. "Carolina, can you come here for a moment, please?" My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it would burst out of my chest. I stood up on shaky legs. "Wait here, darling," I said to Lucia and left her with a friend who had come with me. As I reached the center of the room, I felt all eyes on me. Some guests were whispering, seemingly embarrassed by their laughter just moments before. When I reached Alejandro, he said, "Carolina has been more than a sister-in-law to me. She has been an example of strength and dedication. Although many of you judge her, let me tell you what I really know about her." I looked at Alejandro in confusion. We barely spoke to each other during his relationship with my sister. Carolina works 2 jobs to support her daughter. She wakes up at 5 a.m. to make breakfast before taking her to school and then goes straight to work. At night, she studies nursing online to give Lucia a better future. Some of the guests' eyes widened in surprise. No one in my family knew I was studying. I hid it so they wouldn't say I was wasting my time or how someone like me couldn't achieve it. "But there's something else no one knows," Alejandro continued. "A year ago, when my father had a heart attack in the middle of the street, Carolina was the one who happened to be passing by and saved his life. Murmurs echoed through the room. My mother rose from her seat, clearly confused. Yes, the same Carolina you just made fun of, the one who administered CPR to my father when someone else could have. I didn't know what to do. The same woman you call a used commodity is the reason my father is alive today. Silent tears streamed down my cheeks. I never told anyone what had happened because I didn't want my family to think I was trying to get attention or approval. The man you saved, Carolina, is my father, he said, pointing to an elderly man sitting at the bedside table. The man nodded, his eyes shining with excitement. Alejandro turned to his new wife. Valentina, when you told me that Carolina was your sister, I couldn't believe it. The woman you had called a family shame was a heroine to me. Valentina's face was a poem of confusion and wonder. My mother, on the other hand, seemed speechless for the first time in her life. But that's not all, Alejandro continued, his voice changing to a tone that made my blood freeze. There's another truth that has been hidden for a long time, a truth about Lucia's father that your family has completely distorted. Silence fell over the room. I felt my breath hitch. How could Alejandro know about my daughter's father? It was a secret I had jealously hidden for years, a painful secret that had forced me to stay away from my family. Alejandro looked at me with sharp eyes, as if silently pleading for permission. I nodded slightly, signaling that he should continue, though a deep sense of dread and apprehension about the truth was brewing in my heart. Suddenly, Lucia's father, Alejandro, balked. He declared that he had never abandoned Carolina, as people had claimed for years. My mother immediately stood up in anger and disapproval. You have no right to speak of family secrets you have no knowledge of, she said sharply. On the contrary, madam, Alejandro replied with unwavering firmness and confidence. I know these truths intimately. Lucia's father was my best friend, Mauricio Herrera. A wave of whispers suddenly filled the room, and I was stunned, speechless. I had never imagined that Alejandro could have known Mauricio. That moment was the beginning of an unexpected and heartbreaking revelation for me. Mauricio and Carolina were engaged. This continued. But he died in a car accident 3 months before Lucia was born. Carolina was 6 months pregnant when she died. Tears streamed down my cheeks. Remembering Mauricio was still painful, especially since my family refused to accept our relationship. He came from a humble background, and, according to my mother, he wasn't good enough for us. Carolina has never been a single mother by choice or irresponsibility, Alejandro explained. Life took away the man she loved, and instead of giving up, she tried to move on for her daughter. My mother, clearly upset, intervened and said, "That's not true. The man left her when he found out about the pregnancy. Carolina always makes up stories to justify her mistakes." Just then, Alejandro's father slowly stood up with firm steps and approached the microphone. He said in a deep voice, "I was at the hospital the day Mauricio died. I saw the distraught young woman standing by his bedside, holding his hand as he said goodbye. Tell her how I promised to take care of their unborn child." Mauricio died knowing he would be a father and deeply in love with Carolina. A deathly silence fell over the room. My mother was speechless, while Valentina seemed about to faint. After the funeral, Alejandro's father continued. I tried to contact Carolina to give her some of Mauricio's belongings and offer help, but his family told me he had moved away, leaving no trace. Now I understand why they never passed my messages to her. I looked at my mother in disbelief. Did you know that? Did you know that Mauricio's family was looking for me? My mother looked away, unable to meet my gaze. Her silence was enough to prompt a response. Alejandro took the microphone again. When I met Valentina and she told me she had a sister named Carolina and a little daughter, I never imagined it could be the same person. But when I saw you for the first time at the engagement dinner, I recognized your eyes. They were the same eyes Mauricio had described so lovingly. Lucia, who had been watching everything from her seat, ran to me and hugged me tightly. I lifted her up in my arms, feeling as if I could finally tell her the truth about her father. There's something else, Alejandro said, pulling an envelope from his jacket. Mauricio had left it for his son or daughter. His mother had kept it for so many years, hoping to find you. With trembling hands, I took the envelope. Inside was a letter and a small star-shaped earring, exactly the same as the one Mauricio always carried with him. It was his lucky charm. I reminded myself out loud. You should know something about your financial situation too, Alejandro said, looking at me. Mauricio had a life insurance policy. Since you were engaged, he made you the beneficiary. My heart skipped a beat. What are you saying? I'm saying this money belongs to you and Lucia. Money you never claimed because you didn't even know it existed. Valentina's expression suddenly changed. She turned towards us, her face filled with anger. Is this some cruel joke? She snapped. You're ruining our special day over a sad story and money. Because I confirmed it just 2 days ago when I saw an old photo of Carolina at your parents' house and recognized her as the woman Mauricio loved. My mother said, regaining her composure and coming closer. It's all very touching, but it doesn't change anything. Carolina is still one of us. Think carefully, madam. Alejandro's father interrupted. There's a little girl here who doesn't need to hear any more abuse about her mother. My mother shut her mouth, but her gaze remained venomous. With tears in her eyes, Valentina turned to me. Why didn't you ever say anything about this? Why did you let everyone think you were who we thought you were? I took a deep breath and felt a strength I didn't even know I had. I tried, Valentina. At first, I told them about Mauricio, about our wedding plans, but Mom insisted that he had left me, that it would be better for the family's reputation to say it than for me to fall in love with someone less than me. Over time, I gave up trying. I focused on building a new life for Lucia and us. An awkward silence fell over the room. The guests, unwitting witnesses to this family drama, didn't know where to look. Do I want to say anything else? Alejandro said, his voice firm. Carolina not only saved my father, but she also inspired me to specialize in cardiology. After seeing what she did that day, I decided to save lives like her. I was stunned. I never imagined my little first aid would have such an impact. I've admired you from afar for years, Alejandro confessed, and it breaks my heart to learn how your own family treated you. Suddenly, a child's voice broke the tense silence. Did you know my dad? Lucia asked, looking at Alejandro with shining eyes. He knelt down to be at her eye level. Yes, little one. Your dad was my best friend and a wonderful man. He had a smile just like yours, and he loved you even before he met you. Lucia smiled and hugged the earrings she'd just received. Just then, an elderly woman approached. It was Alejandro's mother. Carolina, we've waited so long to see you, Mauricio said. If you'd let us, we'd love to be a part of his daughter's life. Tears welled up in my eyes, but this time they were of relief and hope. Absolutely. Valentina watched the scene with a mixed expression on her face. Finally, she came up to me. For a moment, I thought she would continue her tirade, but to my surprise, she stopped in front of me, her eyes brimming with tears. Forgive me, she whispered. I didn't know, I didn't understand, I couldn't respond. Years of pain don't go away with an apology, but this was a start. Alejandro addressed the guests. This wedding marks the beginning of a new family, and in my family, we value truth, honor, and loyalty. If anyone doesn't adhere to these values, they're free to leave now. I was surprised that my mother was the first to leave, followed by a few close relatives who had always followed her words like a rule. Alejandro turned to his new wife. Valentina, now you know the truth. The decision is yours. Do you want to be part of this family where we all support each other, or do you want to follow your mother's path? The whole room held its breath as Valentina looked at her mother leaving and then at me, who was holding Lucia in her arms. I saw a conflict in her eyes, an internal struggle between what she had been taught and what she now felt was right. Valentina began, her voice barely audible. That day my life changed forever. Not only did I remember Mauricio and discover that we had a financial security I never knew existed, but I also found a new family that accepted Lucia and me for who we were. The most profound and heartbreaking truth was that my little daughter had finally learned the truth about her father, the truth about a man who had showered her with boundless affection and selfless love since birth, a personality who would have been proud of the little girl who is now slowly emerging as a strong and independent soul. A storm of mixed emotions swelled in my heart: pride, contentment, and a profound relief that came with the revelation of this truth. Sometimes, justice appears in unexpected moments, like a sudden wave in a calm sea. In my life, this justice descended in the middle of that wedding ceremony, when a courageous soul determined that the light of truth was more valuable and necessary than the shiny layers of pretense. In that moment, for my daughter and me, that truth became a liberating force, freeing us from the shackles that had bound us for years.